Ayekwe, Nekna Melita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian, and today I will be talking about my review of The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Melita, it's been months. Why are you doing this now? Because I think I finally have my thoughts together, but I'm still not sure about that and still wanted to get this one out before 2021. I will leave other Indigenous reviews of this book down in my description down below, mostly because I think they've done a better job than I will. I will also leave down in the description down below the live show for the Literally Dead Book Club. November pick was The Only Good Indians, and that Kayla from Books and Lala, as well as guest hosts Brody from EdTube Brody and Monet from Life is Monet. I believe that live show had quite a few great discussions around this book, despite I kind of wish it was longer to get a little deeper into it, but I still appreciated it nonetheless. So this book follows 4 Blackfeet men who end up going elk hunting. It's the last day of the season, they're desperate to fill their freezers, and they make some unwise choices and end up killing unethically, as well as on some land that they're not supposed to be hunting on. There are repercussions legally. However, years later, the spirit of the elk-head woman wants her revenge, and they find themselves being hunted. Before we get started, this is an Own Voices book. Stephen Graham Jones is Blackfeet. There are characters in here that are Blackfeet. I am not. I am Yurok. Indigenous tribes, nations, and peoples are not monolithic. I do not consider this an Own Voices review. This is an Own Voices book, not an Own Voices review. This is an Indigenous review. We have our own experiences, cultures, and beliefs. And although some things may be similar in terms of experiences and beliefs, we are not monolithic. Stephen Graham Jones has quite a bit of a backlist. This book came out this year. This one was gifted to me, but he is quickly becoming known for his Indigenous Gothic, which I absolutely love. Like, just the term just feels so right. So this is horror, and I feel like with it being horror, there is content warnings that you can come to expect. Not that I'm any expert on horror. This is only my second book of the year of 3 that I've read that are horror this year, so bear that in mind going into this review. It's content warning for death, not only of people, but of animals. In-depth graphic detail of death and injuries, blood and gore. Yeah. I'm trying to think if that's it. If not, I will also leave that in the description down below as well. So I say I'm doing this now because I feel like I have my thoughts more together, and I feel like I still don't. Maybe a little better than before. I apologize now for the unorganization of it. Stephen Graham Jones. This is my second book by him that I've read, and this one was intense. Do not read this when your partner goes out hunting. Yeah. I was texting him that whole first night going, don't do anything stupid, don't go anywhere you're not supposed to go. Yeah, that was intense. The messages Stephen Graham Jones puts in this book. Someone mentioned this in the Literally Dead Book Club live show that I really appreciated. Stephen Graham Jones has a way of introducing you to Indigenous point of views without holding your hand. There's not a whole lot of info dump. And I think because of that, like, a lot of people appreciate that, but also I feel like that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are like, I don't get it. So bear that in mind. This is an Indigenous book. There may be some things that non-Indigenous folks will probably just not understand, and that's okay, but then it's like, don't go rating this low or DNFing this book just because you don't get it. Figure it out is what I have to say to that. He is able to put in messages that I, as an Indigenous person, can relate to and feel a connection with, while I think at the same time non-Indigenous folks are like, oh, okay, and get a better understanding of Indigenous, a smidge of Indigenous life. Particularly, there was a multitude of messages that I particularly liked. I tabbed this up a bit. I feel like there was a lot of little things that I was like, yes, I get that. One in particular that makes me crack up is, I call it red speak, but I know that's not the correct term. It's like an accent of sorts. I don't tend to have it until I go to the reservation. And then my partner says that I definitely have it coming back. And then it just kind of dissipates over time. But also just like bigger things as well. For instance, there is references to basketball as well as a few a few scenes with it. I'm not a basketball fan, but I understand the importance of basketball to Indigenous, to particularly on reservations. My dad had tried to get me into it. I was not into it. No, just didn't care. But I know for a lot of cousins, that was their way off the reservation, was to be able to be it was to keep them out of trouble. They were able to keep them busy and keep them motivated. It also was a way to get them off the reservation through scholarships and a chance to being able to go to college. So not a whole lot of them had that chance without basketball, which I thought was really important. So I really appreciated the importance of that in here. Despite not personally enjoying basketball, I did feel like a couple of the scenes were really slow just because they were basketball scenes. However, there was one in particular that I felt was one of my favorite scenes. There's also just the importance of the perspectives. So we get like 6 perspectives in here. We get more time with certain people, and like with that, I feel like we gain sympathy towards them. So one in particular was Lewis, who I feel like we got a lot of time with. I personally gained sympathy with him and was able to relate to him. And I thought Stephen Graham Jones did an excellent job in that, particularly when it came to, because Lewis left the reservation, married someone that wasn't Indigenous, and then felt bad for befriending an Indigenous woman, not because she was a woman, but because she was Indigenous. He was able to tell her things that he felt like he wouldn't be able to tell his wife because she was Indigenous. And I personally related to that in the fact that I have a non-Indigenous partner, and that I know that I've had to explain things to him that I know if I had like talked to an Indigenous person about, they'd understand. So there was that, and I thought that was really interesting. And overall, we just get a lot from Lewis. The pain he felt after that hunting trip, and the sympathy and the regret and everything. Lewis, I felt really bad for him. And we kind of get this like initial impression of Elkhead Woman of being this monster. But as we progress through the book, I personally started rooting for her, because we get her perspective as well, and we start to understand why she's doing what she's doing. And there's not only like her perspective and what's happening right now, but her perspective from years of like what has been happening and why she's doing this. And it was fantastic. It was to the point where there were certain scenes that I'm like, oh shit, like she's gonna get found out, and I was worried for her. And I thought that was incredible that Stephen Graham Jones was like making me care about this character. But then we get another perspective that I actually didn't expect. It was Denora. Denora's, I'm glad we got that perspective. You wouldn't think with how little, like, it was a surprise perspective to me, and it was so important. And just everything. And I thought Stephen Graham Jones did an excellent job in terms of balancing it, not just with the horror in terms of like almost like the slasher type things, but the psychological aspect of it, the anticipation, the worry, the anxiousness. There was multiple scenes where I'm like, fucking run. And was like wanting to scream at this book. This book made me feel things, obviously. I'm still having a hard time, I feel like, describing what all my thoughts are. And I'm hoping I'm making sense. Overall, gave this book 4 stars. I'm just thinking about it more. I'm thinking 4.5. This would make a good movie. However, If it ever came out as a movie, I would never watch it. That's one thing. I am becoming okay with horror books. I'm a chicken when it comes to movies. There's a lot of movies that a lot of people are saying, that's not scary. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I finally watched Sleepy Hollow without covering my eyes at that witch part. So I'm a huge chicken when it comes to movies. However, it would be really cool to know that this got turned into a movie. Just saying. Hopefully I made sense. I think that's all I really wanted to say about this book. I know it's late. I wanted to get it out before 2021. I felt like I had some kind of better understanding of it after seeing everyone else's reviews and literally Dead Book Club's live show. I'm hoping this is coherent enough. If not, whatever. But yeah, this also would make a really good reread. I feel like there were a lot of things that I missed because of how big some of the other details were. If you haven't read this, I highly suggest it, though I do say that with caution, just because if you are particularly sensitive to any of the content warnings that I mentioned, as I said, I will leave other Indigenous reviews down in my description down below. I suggest checking that out as well. I tried to make mine non-spoilery. I know there's a couple other Indigenous, Kim from Native Book Lady Warrior has a discussion that does have spoilers, as well as a review that doesn't, so I highly suggest checking that out as well as others. Yeah. Otherwise, if you've read this book, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I love bouncing off thoughts and ideas from other people. It's something that I was taught in college with art and critiques. I like being able to do that with books, so if you're up to it, leave a comment or find me on other social media. I'm on Goodreads, Instagram, and Twitter. I have some links in the description down below as well for just general things to be aware of. This book hints at missing murdered Indigenous women, girls in Two-Spirit, so I will leave links to those for more information, for donations, and the link in my description down below, as well as a couple of others that I feel like are really important right now. Not to say that others that I don't put in there aren't important. There's just know that there is a lot. Please research, share, and donate where you can. We're still in a pandemic. Please wear your mask, stay 6 feet apart, stay home would be preferable. Otherwise, I will talk to you again soon. Chew.